everyone, this is Big Entertainment and we're back again, and here now we have another video for you, and this will be a review of Invincible Season 2. Now there will likely be spoilers throughout for both this season and the first season, so just beware when going into this overall video. Now of course, Invincible is the Amazon produced animated series adaptation of the comic book series created by Robert Kirkman way back in January 2003, and it centres of course on a young teenager, Mark Grayson, discovering he's part of a mega powered race known as the Viltrumite, who travel the galaxy conquering planets to dominate the universe. As he continues to master his abilities, he takes down powerful antagonists as well as trying to manage his own normal life as a teenager on planet Earth. Now just to quickly recap on the end of the first season, we saw Mark suffer a brutal defeat against his father Nolan in a huge battle that destroyed a lot of the city. Nolan, saddened by his actions, departed Earth, leaving Mark and his mother to cope with the fallout. And season 2 in the beginning very much picked up from those events, with Mark initially struggling to get back into the hero saving. We see his mother also struggling to cope with being lonely, dating several people but still being anguished at the treatment by Nolan. She suffers even more so, especially when Mark moves away to college. We see the new members of the Guardians team trying to get accustomed to saving the world, and the two overall biggest narratives about this season involve the concept of the multiverse, where we saw scientist Angstrom Levy coming from an alternate future where both Mark and Nolan have devastated the world. We see that he's physically disfigured after a battle against Mark, where he's trying to use a massive device to fuse the memories of other variants of himself throughout the multiverse, and after being left disfigured, he overall strives to claim vengeance against Mark. We also see Mark reunited with Nolan without the third episode on the planet Thraxa, where we see that Nolan has started a family with an alien race. But the planet is shortly attacked by other members of the Viltrumite who imprison Nolan and assign Mark with the task of conquering Earth, of which later we see another powerful Viltrumite warrior called Anissa visiting Mark to ensure that he remains focused on his orders. Now the first season of Invincible gained a lot of praise, largely from mixing the large-scale superhero adventure and escapism with a much more mature tone, resulting in adult-orientated violence and gore and very much juvenile humour. It was deemed amongst many fans and critics as amongst the best in superhero animation, certainly from the Western culture side, in recent years. So did season 2 continue with the high standards set from the previous season? Well, sadly the answer to this question is no, as season 2 overall was quite disappointing. Whilst it still had the colourful energy and dynamic and action and spectacle, it was badly let down by its storytelling and overall pacing. Too many times it was juggling multiple narratives simultaneously at once. We would get within episodes some passages that were interesting, and then we would get deviation into more side plots that were far less interesting, and it really made the episodes drag as you were watching them. Normal runtime for the episodes were around 50 to 100 minutes, but because of some story elements not being as compelling, the episodes at times felt even longer. Now as with season 1, the Viltrumite arc remains the most interesting and the most impactful. The introduction of characters such as General Frag and also Anison in the penultimate episode did really elevate a sense of jeopardy and danger. We look at Nolan's arc as well, where we see him being much more of a weakened, beaten down personality as opposed to the all-dominating superpowered being from season 1. Overall I think added a certain depth to his character, as we saw a lot more remorse and contemplation over his actions, and whilst not making the character sympathetic, it did make him much more of a dimensional personality. There is further potential here because we know at some stage throughout possibly season 3 we will see Nolan come to the realisation of what happened to his alien family, and we know at some point he'll break free from his capture and restart the fight back against the Viltrumite. Now unfortunately any other arc throughout this season was far less compelling. Whether we were dealing with the bickering within the new Guardian team, we saw Eve's own struggles with her sense of purpose and identity, whether it was Alan's journey recovering from his own wounds during his previous battles against the Viltrumite. We also had Donald's discovery of his cloning after his own death, but all of these stories felt really needless deviations, and a lot of the time we don't really see them resolved as we come to this season's conclusion. We then talk of the supposed big villain this year in terms of Angstrom Levy, who was very prominent in the first couple of episodes and then is just left behind, out of the picture, and he really doesn't come back into things until the season finale. And he was nowhere near as compelling as a villain as what Nolan was in season 1, And I just feel he needed much more development and much more involvement to be much more of an impactful character. The whole introduction of the multiverse was handled very messily, again taking away much needed momentum and pace within the storyline. Now yes, we do get plenty of gore and violence and hyper-powered fights as what we got in season 1, but this time it just felt a bit throwaway and much more redundant. The violence itself didn't really have the power or the shock from season 1. Maybe it was just a novelty wearing off this time, but a lot of the sequences just didn't have that same tension and build up as what we saw in season 1, particularly when we look at the first episode and how that concluded. We then talk about the overall finale itself, and it was probably the best episode of the entire season. For all of the crazy multiverse jumping antics, the final confrontation between Mark and Angstrom did have some intense heights, and there was very much some emotional moments that were quite impactful as we see Mark coming to realise the true devastation of his violent actions. After seeing the future variants of the Guardians, it seems that Mark has finally come to the realisation that it is indeed Eve that he is destined to be with and not Amber. And this is probably a good thing because, again, the dynamic between Amber and Mark after a while becomes very frustrating and tired to watch. Now, we did get some kind of end credit stingers or setups for the future season 3 where we see some characters uncovering an archaeological dig and we see a mummy ghost appearing from the tomb. Again, I'm not familiar with the comic book lore, so I'm sure this will have further ramifications down the line. And then we had the end credits moment where we saw Nolan captured alongside Alan on the ship, Alan very much getting captured deliberately in order to try and save Nolan, and Nolan remarking that he does miss his wife and his son. So again, it was a very much of a flat note to end on the season. It's certainly hinting that, again, we will see Nolan come to the realisation of what happened to his wife, and then that will be the catalyst for him reawakening his rage and intensity and striking back against the Viltrumite. So overall, this wasn't a terrible season. I just felt a lot of the freshness and the energy that we saw from the season 1 wasn't there this time. Again, it centered much more around the storytelling, which just wasn't as compelling this time round. We also have to remark on Amazon's really silly strategy of releasing the first 4 episodes of this season and then waiting almost 3 months before releasing the next batch of 4 episodes, really diluting a lot of the interest and the conversation around this show, which is never good for any series in order for it to stay within the public zeitgeist and giving it further potential to continue for further seasons going forward. So hopefully Amazon learns from the lessons of the really terrible strategy that had come along with the release of the episodes this season, and when we come towards season 3, we'll either see the episodes drop on a weekly basis or certainly have a much shorter waiting time for any mid-season break in between. So there's my other thoughts and feelings and review of the second season of Invincible. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you have any other further subjects or topics or any other movies, television series that you'd like to see me cover within the channel, then also let me know in the comments and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you on that subject matter within the future. Please also hit like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves and I will see you very, very soon.